On today's video, we're going to go from downtown Sarasota to downtown Bradenton along US 41. We'll start around 2:30 in the morning and we'll finish at around 3:30 in the morning. So we're going to drive around downtown Sarasota a little bit so you guys can get a feel for downtown Sarasota. Then we'll get on US 41 and head north towards Bradenton. Now, both cities' population is just under 60,000 people, making the towns practically identical in size of population. But Sarasota has a wealthier and more cosmopolitan feel, while Bradenton has more of a hometown feel. Downtown Sarasota has nightclubs, and downtown Bradenton has bars and pubs. Bradenton feels more like Irish American and maybe Mexican American, while Sarasota feels more cosmopolitan. There's a lot of people in Sarasota from Russia, Ukraine, Poland. Specifically, the south side of the city has a very, you could say, European vibe, while Bradenton is mostly Irish and Mexican. So the towns are very different, but they are right next to each other, and they're about the same size in population, possibly Sarasota having a little bit more affluence. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we had hot dogs at 2:30 in the morning in downtown Sarasota, and they were pretty good, and the price was very reasonable. I think for 2 drinks and 2 hot dogs, we're under $30, and that's not bad for street food in downtown Sarasota. It's a nice little business they got going on, and they were out of most different types of hot dogs. We ended up getting, I believe they were Texas beef hot dogs or whatever, but regardless, they were very good, and I would definitely try it again. So if you've seen that hot dog stand in downtown Sarasota, I would definitely recommend it. It smells great, and it didn't feel acidy or nasty. I feel like it was actually good quality meat. So leaving downtown Sarasota here at about 2 a.m. downtown clears out. So this is like 2:30, 2:40. By this point, downtown really clears out. Now this was on a Saturday night pushing into Sunday morning. So at this point, all the Saturday night parties had come to an end, and downtown Sarasota looks kind of empty. So this is downtown Sarasota late at night. Practically nobody left here this late. On the left is a Latin nightclub that stays open fairly late. They're going to be playing bachata, salsa, merengue, all the Latin music right there on the left. You can see kind of the last people leaving there. Now, that place also has food. It's a restaurant and a bar. If you eat at the restaurant, you do not have to participate in the bar and the party, but they got pretty good Latin food. I go for the food. I'm not really into the nightlife scene. But this is downtown Sarasota late at night, and at this point, most people have left. On the left there, you can see that hot dog stand. There's still a line, so I guess they stay open almost till 3 a.m. or so, but towards the end of the night, there's not a lot left. And there's always people that just randomly hang around on this part of downtown, just talking with their friends or whatever. That's kind of what we did. We grabbed our hot dogs and then we hung around here. So, I mean, there's cities in the United States that at 10 p.m. they wrap it up. So this isn't Miami, but it's fine. Being the size of Sarasota, it has some nightlife. And again, our goal is to head north on US 41 towards Bradenton, and we're starting to head in that trajectory. We're heading now north of Fruitville Road. We'll eventually get on US 41. I want to show you guys this district of new high-rise luxury apartments, but it's a very contrasty area because on one side of the road, you have brand new luxury apartments, and in the bushes right in front of those apartments, you have homeless people sleeping on the sidewalks. You may be aware of the new homeless law in the state of Florida. That law isn't really being implemented anywhere. The homeless people are a little bit more discreet, but they really have nowhere to go. And unfortunately for this district of North Sarasota, the homeless people were here way before the high rises. So the people that move into the high rises understand there's a homeless problem. You'll see if you look carefully, there's homeless people on the left and on the right side of the road. A person there on the left on a bench, and on the right you can see people sleeping in the bushes right across from luxury apartments. It's a very strange contrast. Now, I've talked to people that live in these apartments during my Uber driving, And they tell me that sometimes the homeless people can be scary, dangerous. A lot of times they stay up all night blasting music, and they can be somewhat of an annoyance to the residents that have to work the next day. So it's a very contrasty situation. Kind of affluent, cosmopolitan Sarasota, but on the other side of the road, you have homeless people sleeping in the bushes. Nonetheless, it's still a beautiful place. Nowhere's perfect. And there are still new buildings going in. They're not done developing downtown Sarasota. I personally don't mind the development. I feel like the more high-rise apartments there are, the more people there are to share this beautiful city with. The more business there is, the more Uber rides I have, the more people there will be living in Sarasota, the more money I can make. So I personally don't have a problem with these high-rise developments. I see it as opportunity. All right, guys, so now we're about to drive past the Skid Row of Sarasota. This is where there are open-air homeless camps. It's a somewhat little dangerous area of Sarasota that has had a homeless camp here on the sidewalks for years and years. This is nothing new. It's always existed. Sometimes there's more people, sometimes there's less. This is what it looks like right now. Yes, it is like a Hot Wheels truck. I'm going to be honest, I feel like a little kid with my truck. Over the years, I've had a lot of vehicles, and this truck has been my favorite. I really love it, and I'm glad that this person thought it was a Hot Wheels truck. It's a red, jacked up Silverado Sierra. I love it, but again, it makes me feel kind of bad driving past these homeless camps in my nice new truck. I'm sure it might make them feel a certain type of way, but that wasn't the goal. And again, if I don't pay for it, the bank will repossess it because I owe money on it. But the goal of today's video was to head north on US 41, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. I'll catch up with you guys further along in the video as I narrate up ahead. This is the north side of Sarasota. We're heading northbound on US 41. US 41 starts in Miami, goes to Naples, and then it goes all the way, I think it goes all the way up to like Michigan or something. But it's a huge road, US 41. And this is the trajectory from Sarasota heading north into Bradenton. The north side of Sarasota is where the airport is. We'll pass the airport up ahead on the right. This area has kind of more affordable hotels. And to the right of us are some of the sketchiest neighborhoods in the city. Northtown, they call it Newton, MOK. You know, the north side of Sarasota is the city's grimiest area, but it's still Sarasota. You can see new luxury apartments there on the left. It's not the worst place possible, but there's a little bit of an element. Sometimes late at night you'll see women walking the streets. You'll see a lot of homeless people. So it has a little bit of an environment. Is it the worst place on earth? It certainly isn't. But, you know, it is the worst part of a fairly nice city. So Sarasota is bounds and leaps better than Bradenton as far as safety goes. But this is the grimiest part of Sarasota. If you've visited Sarasota, you've probably been on this road. But you figure going between the airport and downtown is a popular route for tourists. So this is a grimy part of Sarasota that many tourists will eventually see at some point or another. There's old bars and restaurants that aren't too popular. This isn't exactly the most highlight place to live in Sarasota, but it's interesting that it is the route the tourists see the most often, despite not being exactly the most nicest part of town. It kind of looks touristy. There's the mini golf there, but it isn't the type of neighborhood you want to be out late at night. We're now approaching 3 in the morning, so it's kind of dead, and it was actually a pretty calm night. You didn't see too many homeless people walking around. There's times where this area here it's just homeless people, women walking the streets, but it kind of like ebbs and flows. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. It's very unpredictable. It comes and goes in waves, and for some reason or another, it's pretty dead on this particular night. I don't know why. It's just there's times where it's hot, there's times where it's dead, and on this particular evening, it was fairly quiet. But you can see they're building a lot of new stuff, and what's interesting about this area is it's the route between downtown and the airport. A lot of tourists come through here. There's not too much touristy stuff. There's a lot of very affordable hotels. The people that can't afford the fancy hotels will stay here. But this area, if you think about it, really should be nicer than what it is. It shouldn't be old rundown hotels. There should be some nice new hotels here. I mean, you're talking a very important route, but it's kind of run down, and maybe in the past it was nicer, but I've always heard this has been a rough era regardless. So, but at some point these were new buildings. They're kind of old now and run down, and the hotels are not the highest rated. In fact, some of these hotels, you can tell the people that are staying there aren't even tourists. They're just locals who that's the cheapest place they can land. On the left is the Ringling Museum. On the right starts the Sarasota Airport. And right around here, we're going to soon leave behind Sarasota County and enter Manatee County. So we're kind of on the Sarasota-Bradenton line. Now, the road that we just passed is University. Now, University marks the difference between Sarasota and Manatee County, except near the airport where Sarasota pushes further north. So this is kind of a weird area. For all practical purposes, we're already in Manatee County in a figurative sense, because most of everything north of University, which we just passed, is Manatee County, except for this area here by the airport where we're in. So we're kind of closer to Bradenton now, but we're still in Sarasota technically. So it's kind of like a gray area. It's technically Sarasota because of the airport, but it's really closer to the Manatee County side. It's kind of weird. You're not in one place or the other. Technically, you're in Sarasota. All right, so we're going to drive north. I'm going to go away for a minute, and I'll catch up with you guys in a while. All right, so from here forward, we're in Bradenton now. Now, this is not exactly Sarasota. Bradenton's a little bit more run of the mill, lower income, more homelessness, much more crime. Bradenton is it's not as fancy as Sarasota, but it has a more hometown feel. So now we're in Bradenton, heading north on US41, and this is an area on the left called Bayshore Gardens. On the right, there's a little Venezuelan restaurant right there. We tried it, and it wasn't my favorite. I probably won't go back to it. But this is now the Bayshore Gardens area of Bradenton. Bayshore Gardens area. A few car dealerships. I think these cars are all in a caravan together because there really shouldn't be that many cars this late at night. But that little group of cars seemed like they might have left a club together or something. Like I said, car dealerships up here, pawn shops, that type of little neighborhood. It's not the fanciest area, and it's actually a pretty dangerous and sketchy area. It may not look like it's a dangerous or sketchy area, but it really is. It just has crime. It may not look like it. Now here's Doña Betty. Now keep in mind it's like 3 in the morning, and you can see that there's a packed parking lot here all around Doña Betty. Doña Betty is considered one of the most popular Mexican restaurants, food truck actually, in the Bradenton area. They're open very late. Food trucks are a huge thing in the Latino communities of Florida, and they're going to be open Friday, Saturday, Sundays late at night. That's usually the schedule for them. Every truck is different. Doña Betty stays up to like, I guess, 3 or 4 in the morning. And believe it or not, there's actually a large amount of people that are up this late, enough to pack this little food truck. I've never not seen it busy when they are open. They have a limited schedule that's very late, but it stays busy. This guy with the lowrider was in one of our other videos a while back. There's his little lowrider right there. You may have seen that car in one of our previous videos. But there is a lowrider scene in Bradenton, Florida. And later on in the video, we'll see some other lowriders. I stopped real quick and said hi to him. He says he's going to redo the whole system soon, so it'll be nice to see what he does. Lowriding, it's a pretty cool hobby, and there's actually a pretty big group down here. You guys know me. I like all types of car culture, so I'm good for lowriders. I like squatted trucks, lowriders, anything that's car culture. I like a lot of it. So now we're driving kind of through here. You can see there's just a shadow there on the right. That guy's been hanging around that area for a while in the last few nights. I don't know what he does. He must be homeless. But he just kind of sits there with his hoodie late at night. I've seen him a few times. So now we're still heading north on US 41. And we're still in South Bradenton or Bayshore Gardens to the left. There's a mobile home park here and there. A car wash here and there. Kind of rundown areas. Poor inner city neighborhoods. I'll catch up with you guys a little bit further down the road. On the left, you can see a Wawa gas station. This is where Highway 70 meets US 41. This is a really wild part of Bradenton. It kind of looks normal, except for you might notice it just gets really dark around here for some reason. This is a lot of homelessness through here. And without a doubt, this has to be the most dangerous area of the entire video that you're watching today. You may notice that there's businesses, but they're completely dark. This is a really little dangerous stretch. Lots of homelessness. This is not a place you even walk through at night. Anybody walking through here at night is probably homeless. It's a really dangerous area. There's been several homicides, I think 5 or 6 in the last year, just in that little stretch right there. So it's a very dangerous area. I mean, if you just think about the fact that I think 4 or 5 people have been killed right there within that little 1 mile, not even half-mile area, it's insane. This McDonald's here has had a lot of homeless people hanging out. And now we're approaching Cortez. Now, if you take a left on Cortez, you'll be heading towards the beaches. If you take a right and just keep going on to 44th, you'll be in Lakewood Ranch eventually. And there's a bridge that's being built to go over Interstate 75 that will make it easy to go from Lakewood Ranch to the beaches. But for now, that is how you get to the beach. You'll take a left or right there. We're going to keep going straight ahead. Notice a stalled out vehicle there for some reason. Again, it's a sketchy area. And if you look at the car in front of us, they're kind of driving all over the road. So maybe a little intoxicated. Who knows? I'm guessing. I'm not sure. So this looked like a homeless person passed out there. You couldn't really see the whole person because, it's a really cold night, by the way. So they're kind of wrapped in blankets, but their body position was kind of weird. It looked like their legs were hanging in the air, so that kind of caught my attention. Also, you'll notice that the homeless people in Sarasota were just kind of sitting around, but you'll notice when we go past the Skid Row in Bradenton that the homeless people here are actually wrapped up in blankets. On the right here, there's a bunch of food trucks back there. There's a Venezuelan food truck that's really good. They probably have the best burger in Bradenton. It's a very different burger. It's a burger with eggs and little fries, and I don't know. It's like a whole different thing. So, if you've ever wondered what a Venezuelan burger tastes like, it's probably one of the coolest burgers I've ever had. You notice on the right another homeless person wrapped in a blanket. So, homelessness is rampant in Bradenton. Homelessness is everywhere. So there's a lot more homeless in Bradenton and in Sarasota. You'll notice homeless people all over Bradenton. And so if you just look in the side, on the sidelines, you'll see people sleeping in the bushes, sleeping in benches, wrapped up in blankets. Why the homeless people are wrapped up in blankets here but not in Sarasota, I'm not sure. But if you just look real carefully, you'll see homeless people everywhere. It's really sad. If you look right there, there's a bunch of homeless people there on the right. We just passed maybe 5 or 6 at least. But they're wrapped in blankets. It was a cold night. I'm not sure why the homeless people in Sarasota don't have blankets. It could be that, if you look at the benches, there's homeless people everywhere. It's heartbreaking driving through Bradenton actually at night. My guess would be that somebody in Bradenton gives the homeless people blankets, and also that Sarasota's a finer, more elegant city, so they don't let the homeless people have stuff laying around. Where in Bradenton, they're allowed to have stuff laying around, or there could just be somebody in Bradenton that's giving the homeless people blankets. Very thoughtful of them, because it was a very cold night. And so this is kind of, again, another really rough area of Bradenton. Downtown Bradenton is probably still like a mile or maybe 2 miles ahead still. So this is just south of downtown Bradenton. We just passed a group of homeless people there on the right. You can see somebody on the left sleeping on the sidewalk. So homelessness is absolutely rampant in Bradenton. The new law didn't change anything. If you think it changed anything, it's laughable. It's not. They make these laws to make people think they're going to do something about homelessness, but they're not doing anything about it. These apartments here on the right start at $1,400 for a studio and $1,700 for a 1-bedroom. That's before all your fees. And you can see there on the right, somebody sleeping on the sidewalk. I mean, everywhere you look, there's people sleeping everywhere. So Nothing has changed in Florida. This is a Cuban tire shop that's just open there on the right. We're going to turn left here, get off of US41 for a minute. If you pay attention to the left, you'll see there's a bunch of people sleeping there in front of the Salvation Army on the left. You can just make out people there sleeping on the sidewalk. And so you take a left turn here, you'll see people right on that black fence as well. This is the Salvation Army, and you'll notice that there's people sleeping on both sides of the road, on the sidewalks. They do have blankets, which we didn't see that in Sarasota. You can see a bunch of people there sleeping on the sidewalks. It's heartbreaking. Sometimes I bring them water and food and clothes, whatever I can get them. But there's so many homeless people in this town that one person couldn't help everybody. It's impossible. You'll see people here digging through the garbage for food. It's heartbreaking, but this is where we live. But imagine that. You're paying $1,700 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, and you're on the other side of the street. There's people digging through the garbage, sleeping on the sidewalk. So that's the beautiful state of Florida, a place of law and order. Heading north now, we're going to flip back and pull a U-turn so you guys can get a better look at this little area here. Sometimes there's people, when you pass by, they're still hungry or desperate for food, and they'll kind of get out on the road so you can see them. But looks like everybody's sleeping, and they do have blankets, which is great because it was a super cold night. For Florida, it was pretty cold. You can see that person's finally laying down right there. You can see homeless people scattered all over the floor. It's pretty sad that people in the United States of America have to sleep on the floor. A lot of them are elderly here. They're going to the Salvation Army, so they're trying to be close to services, but they're not able to get in. They run out of beds, and it isn't free. It costs $15 a bed to sleep there, by the way, if you didn't know that. All right, so now we're turning left, heading north along US 41 again. Well, if you live in the Bradenton area and you drive around late at night, you got some extra water, some extra food, pass by there and ask people if they need food. You would be surprised how thankful and needy these people are. A lot of them are disabled. A lot of them have mental illness, and they really appreciate whatever you can do for them. Notice on the right here, another group of homeless people, and on the left is a gas station that blasts opera music. You can see on the bus stop more homeless people. It's really sad. But that gas station there on the left, they blast opera music to keep the homeless people out of the way. Notice a bicycle on the road with no lights. You gotta be really careful driving through Bradenton at night. This is downtown Bradenton. It's laid out kind of weird, and even though I've lived here for quite a while, I actually struggled, yes, to find Main Street on Bradenton. It's laid out so weird. And I Uber drive in downtown Bradenton on a weekly basis, so it's so complicated to get on Main Street in downtown Bradenton that even somebody who Uber drives here on a regular basis like myself struggles to find Main Street. That's a little concerning that it exists, but it's difficult. Like here I had to pull a U-turn or something to figure it out. I'm literally being recognized on a daily basis. It's a little overwhelming how big my YouTube channel's got, but everybody's usually so cool. I mean, I get a lot of love, and if you see me out in town, say hello, say what's up. I'll be nice. But anyways, we finally found downtown Bradenton at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and it's completely dead. But this is downtown Bradenton very late at night. And that's a notification from Uber telling me to go work. Now, this is actually not a bad one. I can make $48 by taking somebody from Sarasota to Tampa International Airport. It would take exactly 1 hour, so I could make $48 in an hour, but then I would be in Tampa at 6 in the morning, 5:59. Literally, I would finish this road trip at 6 in the morning. Would I want to be in Tampa at 6 in the morning? Probably not. So it's not a bad deal, actually. If I took it, it would be $48 an hour. But the problem is, how do you get back In fact, it actually be more than that because there's a $4 reservation fee. It actually isn't bad. I mean, if I had to go into Tampa, or if I was willing to be up in 3 hours, which I'm not, I haven't gone to sleep yet, but it wouldn't be bad. I mean, I could literally make $50 in an hour taking this person to the airport. But then you got to take away your fuel. It probably isn't worth it, to be honest, because then you're in Tampa, and you'll never catch a ride from Tampa back to Sarasota. Sarasota is a lot smaller than Tampa, so if you're in Sarasota, you can catch a ride to Tampa every single day. But if you're in Tampa, you will never catch a ride back to Sarasota or Bradenton, which means it's a one-directional drive. So it sounds like a good deal to make $50 for an hour, but it really isn't. You know, these people that make these reservations, a lot of times the drivers cancel them. They'll accept the reservation, and then they'll cancel it last minute, leaving the person hanging. I really don't understand why people make these last-minute reservations, thinking that perhaps the driver will show up. You wouldn't believe how unreliable Uber drivers are. I don't take them because, I mean, I do Uber like if I feel like it. I've almost made $600 this week on Uber, which sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider how much time you got to invest into it, gas money and all that, it's only really like $400, and a bunch of miles on my vehicle that I'll never get back. I think now in the season, when the snowbirds come, right? The snowbirds are going to be here soon. It might get to like $35, $36 an hour. And at that point, you could work 2 or 3 hours and make $100. At that point, it kind of makes sense to do it, even with a big truck like I got. If you can go out there for 2 hours in the weekend or 3, I can drive 4 and come back with $150, maybe $200. That kind of makes a little bit more sense. In other words, if you can make a few $100 during the weekend, doing something extra, why not? Obviously, this late night downtown Bradenton is completely dead. Nothing going on. If we were to continue on US41, we would cross over into Palmetto. But this is the end of our journey today, driving through downtown Bradenton. A drive from Sarasota to Bradenton on US41 late at night. And in case you're wondering, downtown Sarasota is considerably safer than downtown Bradenton. I wouldn't even think of hanging out in downtown Bradenton late at night. I do it sometimes, but it's not like I'm going to take my wife there type of thing. I don't know why I do it sometimes, now that I think about it. It's kind of a good question. Why would you go to downtown Bradenton late at night? I've done it a few times. Not sure why, but it's definitely not the same environment. Sarasota is like, let's go here and have a great evening late at night, see some nightlife. Downtown Bradenton's like, okay, I wonder if there's going to be a bar fight out on the road. Another nightmare of downtown Bradenton is how horrific the lights, traffic lights, grid pattern is. A nightmare. They really need to have a civil engineer go in there and fix that, but they won't. So there's a bar here on the right, and I picked up a lady, and I dropped her off at that bar. She was like in her 50s. There's more homeless people there. And she offered to nibble on me. It was like a 3 or 4 minute Uber ride. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm really fine. I don't need that service right now. But she told me, hey, if you come back, I'll be out of the bar in about an hour. I'll be even more drunk than I am now. I'm like, I think you're drunk enough already, lady. And what's interesting, she was like in her 50s or 60s. Like, if you saw her out there, she looked like the most proper person ever. But then she hopped in that Uber and was like, hey, nibble time. I was like, no, I have a wife. This little area here used to be notorious for homelessness, but looking at it now, it doesn't seem like there's that many homeless people. And I think the reason is because homeless people are afraid of this little area. Yeah, it's that dangerous that the homeless people are afraid. Your neighborhood's bad when the homeless people are afraid of being there. I've talked to a few homeless people who told me, hey, I think Sam's interview, she said, because there used to be a rehab center right there, but she's like, I'm not going to go anywhere near that neighborhood. She's like, I'd rather be... No. It's a bad, scary area when even the homeless people are afraid of it. But this is 9th Street heading south. It parallels US 41. And there's also new buildings going in here for some reason. And there's an auto shop, one of these dealerships here that plays what sounds like loud Greek music late at night to also deter the homeless. So A thing here in Bradenton is playing loud music to deter the homeless people from coming in here. New apartments going in, I'm going to guess the price tag will be ridiculous as well. And again, overlooking homeless people sleeping on the sidewalk. So quite the view. But regardless, it's one of those things here in Bradenton where like you're just driving down the road like that, and you hear like Arabic music or opera music or loud Greek guitars playing or something. So to deter homeless people from being vagrant outside of their business, they blast annoying sounds throughout the whole night, and sometimes they can be heard from residential properties that are adjacent. I talked to somebody who lives behind one of these businesses, and they're telling me it's absolutely phenomenal that the business across the street blasts Arabic music or opera music the whole night while they're trying to sleep. They say it's horrendous, and the county does nothing about it. Obviously, they've tried calling, complaining about it, but the county won't do anything about it. It's a commercial business; they can do it. So you'll see there are benches here. Sometimes there's homeless people sleeping in them. Homeless people everywhere. It's so sad. I mean, it's just a mess driving through here at night. And one of the methods that the businesses use is playing loud music that's extraordinarily annoying to deter homeless people from wanting to camp out outside their businesses, resulting in an annoyance to the properties that are adjacent to these businesses that sometimes are residential properties where people live in, and they have to listen to opera music the whole night to keep the homeless people from being vagrant. What a mess Bradenton is in. Bradenton has beautiful beaches. It has nice areas like Lakewood Ranch, islands and stuff like that. But, you know, the city core is a complete mess. And, well, there you go. You just drove from Sarasota to Bradenton and can kind of compare both cities late at night. Obviously, safety in Sarasota is much better than Bradenton. And interestingly, cost of living is about the same. So I don't really get how that works.